Let's be honest. All this you call life, did you ever really understand it? Or did you just hop on the moving train like everyone else, pretending to know where it's going? Look at yourself. Always so busy, so serious, so proper. You check your email as if your existence depends on the outcome. You get angry when someone is late, as if time were a personal offense. You strive to seem stable, functional, coherent. But deep down, you know something doesn't add up. There's an awkward silence behind your achievements, a silent suspicion that accompanies you when no one's watching. You can't name it, but you feel it. It's that pang just before falling asleep, that emptiness between one goal achieved and the next. It's the question you never dared to ask. What if all this was a farce? What if all your seriousness, all your suffering, all your rules were just part of a game you don't understand? What if the big secret is that others don't understand it either, but act as if they do? Think about it. Since you were little, you were trained to obey rules nobody wrote. Smile, be quiet, sit up straight, study, get a degree, work, save money, get married, have children, buy something expensive so it looks like everything makes sense. But does it really? Because if all this made sense, why do you keep feeling like you're on the wrong stage, reciting lines that mean nothing? Why does every step you take towards success make you feel emptier, more disconnected, more artificial? And why, when no one's watching, do you catch yourself wishing everything would collapse just so you could start over? There's something they haven't told you, something they don't teach, but you sense. And when you discover it, you won't be able to go back. You'll see it everywhere, in the way people worry about absurd things, in the anguish with which they cling to their roles, in the ridiculous way they take themselves seriously, as if the universe were evaluating them, as if life were an exam. But it isn't. It's a game, a very well-disguised game. And you didn't even know you were playing. And here comes the truly twisted part. They've convinced you that winning the game means being taken seriously, as if respect only comes with gravity in your face, dark suits, complicated words, and a furrowed brow. As if growing up meant stopping laughing, stopping dancing, stopping playing. Do you realize? They taught you that being an adult means being predictable, that freedom is dangerous, that spontaneity is immature. And the worst part? You believed it. You killed the child who played in the mud so you could fit into gray offices. You buried them alive beneath your pending tasks, your obligations, your serious goals. And now you live like a character who doesn't remember their script. You pretend all this has a clear purpose, but it doesn't. And that's not tragic. That's liberating. Life is not a novel with a closed plot. It's constant improvisation, a dance without choreography. And you know what the problem is? You keep waiting for someone to tell you the steps, for someone to validate your moves, for someone to applaud you before you dare to be yourself. But no one will come. No one. Because everyone is too busy trying to look confident like you. Because everyone, listen carefully, everyone is improvising. Only some do it with fear, and others with art. Now there's something else, something not talked about. No one tells you that inside the game there's another, more perverse game. One where you not only have to act, but also compete. Compare yourself, measure yourself. Against what? Against an illusion. Against false versions of others. Against carefully edited projections of people as lost as you. You see others winning and think you're losing, but you're not in the same game, not even on the same board. And what do? You run faster, smile wider, fake better, until one day you wake up and realize you don't know who you are without all that. You've mistaken your disguise for your identity. And that is an invisible prison. What you don't know is that the game only changes when you change the rules. And that starts by stopping the pretense that winning matters, by ending the race toward a finish line that doesn't exist, because there's no trophy, no podium, no judge. There are only moments, instants that you can fill with tension or with play. And here comes the uncomfortable part. No one is going to give you permission to stop suffering. No one will applaud you for being free. Because when you free yourself, others feel threatened. They don't know what to do with you. You're no longer predictable. You no longer fit. And that makes them uncomfortable, because your freedom reminds them of their prison. And do you know what they do when they feel threatened? They call you immature. They accuse you of not taking life seriously, as if suffering were a virtue, as if rigidity were a form of respect. But it isn't. It's just fear. Fear of chaos. Fear of uncertainty. Fear of what others will say. Fear of dancing without a score. And there's the key. Because when you learn to live without a score, when you accept that life is improvisation, when you choose to dance instead of march, something breaks. Something inside you is freed. You no longer need to have everything under control. You no longer need to understand everything. You no longer need to win. You only need to be present, alive. And here's where the game becomes magical. You start to see things with different eyes. You no longer see enemies. You see characters. You no longer see failures. You see chapters. You no longer see obstacles. You see stages. Everything changes because you changed. Because you stopped being an obedient pawn and became the player. Now listen carefully, because this is important. The only difference between the one who suffers and the one who plays is the level of attachment. The former believes what happens defines who they are. The latter understands everything is a temporary performance, that nothing is as serious as it seems, that everything can be explored, questioned, transformed. And that understanding, conscious detachment, is not indifference. It's wisdom. It's depth without weight. It's presence without rigidity. But to get there, you have to cross a threshold. And crossing that threshold is violent, because it means dying to everything you believed you were. It means looking the void straight in the face, sitting with uncertainty, embracing the absurd. And that's scary. That's why so few do it. That's why most cling to their mask, even when it suffocates them. Because letting it go is like jumping into the abyss. But what they don't know, what you're starting to suspect, is that there is no abyss. There is air. And whoever jumps doesn't fall. They flow. And then something brutal happens. You discover you can act without expectations, love without guarantees, create without needing approval, live without explanations. It's like waking up from a dream, like realizing you were pretending gravity in a world that floats. And suddenly, you start to laugh. Not a mocking laugh, not a nervous laugh, a deep laugh that comes from a place you didn't even know existed. A laugh that laughs at nothing, but laughs at everything, even at yourself. because you understand that what you called a problem was just a scene, that what you called failure was just a plot twist, that what you called life was, in reality, a play in which you were always the author. And finally, you stop resisting. You stop playing the role you were given. You start writing your own. And if you do it well, if you do it with courage, the whole world changes without moving an inch. Because you have changed. Because you have understood. Because you no longer need everything to make sense. It's enough for it to have play. And here comes the craziest part of all. When you accept it, when you embrace it, when you live it, you become dangerously free. Because you are no longer manipulable. You are no longer domesticated. They can no longer use you against yourself. Because fear loses its power when you understand that losing doesn't matter. Winning means nothing. The only thing that counts is how you choose to play. And you, how are you going to play from now on? And just when you start playing, you realize something even more unsettling. Others are not ready for that. They look at you weird. They watch you as if you were dangerous. Because in reality you are. You represent what they don't dare to be. They can't classify you, and that destabilizes them. Because the world as we know it rests on a shared lie, that everything must be taken seriously. The system needs you to be afraid, to feel shame, to obey without asking too many questions. But when you no longer seek approval, when you no longer need permission to live your way, the system cracks. Because you become an anomaly, a crack, an error in the matrix. And through that crack, the truth starts to slip in. An uncomfortable but liberating truth. You can be yourself, even if you're not what's expected. You can stop fitting in and still keep walking. You can make mistakes and not feel guilt. You can choose a weird, twisted, improvised path. And that path, precisely because of that, is the most yours. Here is where many stop, because the most challenging moment arrives, sustaining your authenticity in the face of noise. Against those who call you selfish. Against those who accuse you of being irresponsible. Against those who need you to return to your old compliant self to feel comfortable. And there appears an even subtler trap, one no one warns you about. You start playing, yes, but deep down, you're still waiting for someone to say, "Well done." You still want recognition. You still want others to applaud your freedom. But if your game depends on applause, then you're not playing, you're acting. And the true game begins when you understand you don't need witnesses. Now, take a deep breath, because here is where everything gets deeper. What if I told you that even your most intimate thoughts, those you believe are yours, are also part of the character? What if the voices in your head, the ones that judge you, pressure you, push you toward perfectionism, weren't really yours? What if they were echoes of everything you heard as a child, from your parents, from your teachers, from television, from culture? You've been shaped by so many external opinions that you can't even distinguish what you truly want. You think you know yourself, but you don't. You only know your conditioning. And that is the next level of the game. To unprogram yourself. Unlearn. Question every impulse. Every "I have to." Every "I mustn't." Every "that's how I am." Because many times what you say you are, you aren't. It's just what you learn to be to survive. And here begins the most brutal internal game. The one played in the shadows where there are no spectators, no guides, no medals. where you meet yourself without masks. And that isn't always pretty, because at first, what appears is chaos, emptiness, doubt. But if you dare to stay there, not to flee, not to cover it up with distractions, something miraculous happens. What seemed like fear transforms into curiosity. What seemed like confusion turns into possibility. And what seemed like loneliness becomes pure freedom. Suddenly, you no longer have to maintain an image. You no longer have to prove anything. You can simply be. And there arises an authenticity so powerful it needs no explanation. Because true authenticity does not shout. It does not justify. It does not decorate. It simply manifests. And when it appears, all that is false begins to crumble around it. That's why it bothers so much. Because when you live without a mask, you remind others they could also do it. But they don't dare. And here the game becomes spiritual, not religious. Spiritual, because it's no longer about external goals or social validation or results. It's about connection with the moment, with your body, with your breath, with that part of you that doesn't need to win anything to feel alive. And when you settle there, you discover something very few understand. There's nothing more revolutionary than a human being playing. A human who laughs when others tense up, who dances when everything falls apart, who improvises when everyone follows the script. Because that human becomes an unbearable mirror for others. A mirror that doesn't reflect what they are, but what they could be if they stopped being afraid. And just there, when you've understood everything, when you finally feel free, you realize something no one told you. Freedom isn't a destination. It's a constant exercise, a choice you have to make every day. Every time the world invites you to go back to the character, to take yourself seriously, to harden, to disguise yourself again. Because they never stop inviting you to that party, to that theater. And it's tempting to go back. Very tempting. But there you are, holding on to the invisible, playing while everyone else acts, laughing while everyone else pretends, living while everyone else survives. And that is true mastery. Not escaping the game, but learning to play it consciously. Not destroying the rules, but moving within them with grace. Not fleeing chaos, but dancing with it, like a lucid madman, like a wise person disguised as a child, like an unarmed warrior who has understood there is no war, only theater, only movement, only life. And now the question is no longer what you will do with your life. The question is, will you keep acting, or will you finally start playing? And while the rest keep competing over who appears more confident, you become a brilliant anomaly, a rarity that doesn't want to impress anyone, but ends up leaving a mark on everyone. Because while they struggle to be remembered, you simply choose to be. And that being, that pure, simple, free gesture, is what has the greatest impact. Because no one is ready for someone who no longer needs to prove anything. No one knows how to react to someone who laughs in the middle of the fire, who dances on the rubble, who breathes deeply when the world shrinks. And the most brutal thing is that you can be that person. You don't need a degree to achieve it. You don't need a star to shine on you. You only need to give yourself permission to break free from that programming that told you everything must hurt, that if you're not suffering, then you're not progressing. And there, right there, begins the silent revolution, the most powerful one. Because when you stop taking everything so seriously, you disarm collective madness. You interrupt the script. You interfere with the system. And every time you choose play over judgment, you open a crack in the structure, a crack through which air enters. Light, laughter, love. Because yes, love is also part of the game, but not that dependent, anxious love that demands and begs. No, the love I'm talking about is free. It's pure presence. It's surrender without fear of the outcome. It's looking at the other and saying, be whoever you want to be, and I'll keep dancing by your side without demanding anything. That kind of love can only be born when you stop pretending, when you empty yourself of the character and simply play at being you. So at this point, answer yourself with brutal honesty. Are you willing to let go of everything that binds you? Are you ready to look at life without the glasses of duty and see it as the open stage it really is? Because if you're not ready, it's okay. The game will still be there, waiting for you. But if something inside you lit up, even if it's a spark, then there's no turning back. You've seen too much. You've felt too much. And now you know. You know you can live without the weight of I have to. You know you can exist without demands or masks. You know you can play, even if the rest of the world doesn't understand the rules yet. And that makes you a beautiful threat. A fire that doesn't burn, but illuminates. And if you've made it this far, it's no coincidence. This isn't just a video. It's a portal, a door to another level of consciousness, to another way of being alive. Not to escape reality, but to live it as what it really is. A stage, a play, a scriptless game. So before you leave, I want you to do something. I want you to comment a phrase, just one. Write it in the comments as a secret code among those of us who are waking up. I no longer act. Now I play. And if you see it written by someone else, you'll know you're not alone. We are more than you think, more than the system wants to admit. Those who no longer swallow the lie, those who live in play mode. And if you want to keep diving deeper, if you want me to keep taking you down these paths almost no one travels, subscribe to, not out of obligation, but because you know this wasn't just a video. It was a tremor, a crack, a whisper that reminded you of something you already knew but had forgotten. Now close your eyes, take a deep breath, and smile, even if there's no reason, especially if there isn't. Because in this game, those who laugh without reason are the ones who have truly understood everything. See you in the next episode. And remember, don't get caught acting. Because on this stage, only those who dare to play win.